Welcome back to another edition of the Florida State Simulcast. College football is officially here, folks. We're here. It's September. South Carolina and Vandy kick off tonight. I don't count the Cal-Hawaii game in Sydney, Australia, for crying out loud. No. Tonight, college football begins, and I thought I would go ahead and drop my Ole Miss versus FSU preview tonight. Seemed rather appropriate. And before I get into what I did, I got my information from TomahawkNation.com, which is FSU's SB Nation website, warchant.com, Knowles247.com, various FSU beat reporters, a couple podcasts that I listen to every week. Now, on the Ole Miss side of things, I mainly got the information from Ole Miss's official website and Red Cup Rebellion, which is Ole Miss's SB Nation website. And if you're a fan of college football, you should go to your team's SB Nation site. It's always great content. And if you're already doing that, you should go to your team's opponent's SB Nation site if you don't know anything about them, which is what I did. I didn't know much about Ole Miss other than they beat Bama the past 2 years. And Red Cup Rebellion was very helpful. Anyways, what I did, or what I'm going to show you in this video, is Ole Miss's offense versus FSU's defense. Now, mind you, I'm not that great at Excel, to be honest, so it might not look that great. So fair warning. You can go ahead and laugh at it if you like. That's cool. But let's go ahead and dive in to that Ole Miss offense versus FSU's defense real quick. Okay, and here's my shitty spreadsheet I made. At the top, each stat or category is pretty much self-explanatory. From left to right, you got height, weight. The 24/7, that is, of course, the 24/7 composite rating, the recruiting website that's out there. And I also decided to put the stats or the class. In case they didn't play, I just put their class. Then you got the starts from last year and, of course, the name and position. Now, with Ole Miss, they run a spread option. I'm sure if you clicked on this video, you probably knew that. But this is kind of their base. 3 wide receivers, tight ends, with a running back in the backfield. And FSU on the right side, they typically run a 4-2-5. Because they face quite a few spread option teams in the ACC, Clemson being the most notable, and employing 5 defensive backs is usually a good strategy when facing those teams. So now let's look into some player matchups or some positional matchups, and I'm going to start with the pass catchers. At the top of the screen, you see Stringfellow. He's a returning starter. Oh, and before I go on, Ole Miss has 6 returning starters on offense. FSU has 7 returning starters on defense. Okay, back to Stringfellow. Good size at 6'2", 211 pounds. Good pedigree with the 4-star ranking there. And by the way, I know 4 and 5-star doesn't always equal victory, but I just decided to throw him in here just for more information. Anyways, he on the other side, he's going up against White at the top of your screen for the Knowles. His stats, as you can see, aren't very eye-opening. But that's mainly because quarterbacks didn't throw his way a ton. But he matches up very well, I think, at 6'1". He's a 4-star guy. And I think he could match up fairly well. He could be a second or third team All-American. Wouldn't surprise me. Hell, maybe even a first if everything goes well. He doesn't get much love, but he was very good last year. And now at the bottom of the screen you have Attaboy Joe, who also has good size at 6'3", 195. He's going up against McFadden, first-year starter, redshirt freshman. But you're going to notice a trend here. Like Ole Miss has tall receivers, FSU employs tall cornerbacks. 6'2", 200 is great size. He was a 5-star coming out of high school. And if you look, before I just say it for every player, I'm just go ahead and just make the statement. This is kind of insane. 10 of the 11 defensive starters were ranked either a 4 or 5-star at high school. Again, I know this doesn't equal certain victory, but it helps. Anyways, I think McFadden matches up well with Attaboy Joe. And in the slot, yeah, Van Jefferson is a true freshman. Good height, smallish, not surprising for a true freshman. He will be going up against, and not always the star, because FSU will run some zone and what have you. But for the purpose of this video, we'll be going up against Lewis, who, like most FSU cornerbacks, is at least 6 feet tall and a 4-star. That should be an interesting battle. But I think mainly with the receivers and the defensive backs, those are pretty much a push, I'd say. I mean, I could maybe claim one way or the other, but I'm just going to call him a push for now. And then at tight end, you have the pass-catching tight end, Ingram. At 6'2", 227, I'm going to bet he doesn't block much, which is why I'm assuming he's a pass-catching tight end. Not to mention Ole Miss offense they deploy. So, and he appears to be a good one. 38 catches, 464 is good for a tight end. For the purpose of this video, Thomas could lock up on him in man-to-man coverage. Thomas is a unicorn, as some people like to call him. He's barely found the field, and this is his 4th year on campus. But by all accounts, he's been a stud this whole camp, and he could finally break out. He's a 5-star guy, great size, 6'3", 230. It's actually bigger than Ingram. And I think that's another good matchup for FSU and a push at worst. But let's move to the interior of Ole Miss's offense, the offensive line. Everyone wants to talk about how Tunsil's gone. They had to revamp the O-line, and they did. Patterson and Conyers are really the only true returning starters, at least according to the websites I frequented. And I think, although it's revamped, they do have a strength, and it's probably the interior. And they're going to have a tough task going up against Noddy and Christmas. 2 big boys at 300 plus, both 4-star guys. Noddy's had an outstanding camp. But where I think FSU could have a clear-cut advantage would be on the edges of this offensive line. At the bottom of the offensive line, you have Rawlings. 280 pounds is fairly light for a tackle. I mean, not fairly, that is light. And whether it's Sweat or if Walker rotates over, I think both of those guys could give him hell. Sweat's up to 250 now, has great length at 6'5". At one point was the #1 player in high school until he shredded his knee. And he actually wound up playing last year, which was a surprise. But anyways, I think Rawlings and Taylor, maybe Taylor to a lesser extent. At least he has bigger size, more weight. But 6'3" is not great length. So whether it's Walker or Sweat or Thomas or even James coming off the edge. By the way, if you don't know Derwin James by now, this is as a true freshman. He's sick. Those guys could give the edges of Ole Miss's offensive line hell. Okay? So I'm going to give FSU the check mark as far as offensive line versus D-line. It doesn't mean Ole Miss can't move the ball, but on paper, at least for me, I think the edges of the O-line is where FSU has a clear advantage. Now, having said all that, whether it's the secondary versus their pass catchers or the ends and the linebackers and the safeties blitzing the edges of this revamped offensive line, Chad Kelly can negate all that. If you look over on the far left, you see these stats? They're pretty good. I knew he was a good quarterback, but damn, he also had 500 rushing yards to boot. So the Noles can match up well. They can play fundamental football and do all their assignments and yada yada yada. But he has the ability to make the throw to negate all that, and he's willing to take the chance. He has such confidence in his arm that you can be where you're supposed to be and him still just drop it in the bucket. But if I'm giving a check mark to one side here, it's FSU on the right side. Not a huge check, but I think whether it's personnel or scheme or both, I just think FSU's defense matches up quite well. I don't think they're going to completely stop Ole Miss. You don't completely stop Kelly and a hurry-up offense like they have. And they still have talent at the wide receiver position, like I mentioned earlier, despite losing Treadwell. But I would give FSU the check mark. And I still think Ole Miss can score in the 20s, but I really just don't see more than that. Well, that wraps up my preview of Ole Miss's offense versus FSU's defense. And for what seems like the 5th time me saying this, I tend to repeat myself, I would give FSU the overall advantage. Not a huge one. Like I said, Ole Miss will probably still move the ball, but check mark goes to FSU, as I said before. All right, that's it. That is all. I will who am I? I will upload my video to YouTube featuring Ole Miss's defense versus FSU's offense tomorrow. So I wanted to separate these because I didn't want like a 20-minute long video, because who the fuck wants to watch that? Apparently people will, barely watch more than like 3 or 4 minutes. And hell, this one's like almost 10 minutes long. So anyways, Thank you for watching. If you're a first-time visitor to this channel, feel free to subscribe. And this has been another Florida State Simicast.